Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 9th virtual SSA program presented by CDL. Opened in 2017, the SSA is Singapore's first major 3P partnership space dedicated to advocacy, thought leadership, collaboration on climate action, and issues of sustainability. And due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we've continued with our advocacy through our virtual and social media platforms. My name is Marilyn from the CDL Sustainability team, and today's session is the second in our series of Youth4Climate Global Conversations. Do take part in the conversation and the discussion, as the three most active participants stand a chance to win Seastainable starter kits. And before the panel begins, it's my pleasure to invite Ms. Esther on, CDL's Chief Sustainability Officer, to say a few words. Over to you now, Esther.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the second session of our Youth4Climate Global Conversations, which spotlights on waste pollution and how we can reduce waste. And by now, we all have heard all those shocking data that such as there will be more plastic than fish, in our ocean by 2050. And everyone has been consuming, microplastic as much as 70,000 per year. So indeed, the link between public health and the state of our environment has never been clearer. For the past 2 decades, CDL has been committed to capacity building and also collaboration. Our aim is to catalyze actions towards positive change. And we always believe that youth and women are the very powerful force for change. And therefore, through our Generation Challenge, Youth4Climate, and also Women for Green Network, we actually have met many eco-champions among women and youth. And today's panel, and you have probably noticed that it is all-lady, eco-champion representing 4 countries. And I would like to say a big thank you to all the panelists. And in fact, both Anna Oposa and Sam Suchin were our Generation Challenge winner in 2018, and both of them have won a diving and study expedition to Raja Ampat. And I would also like to thank, Hannah from Indonesia, Shana from the US, and Samantha Thian from Singapore. And your passion and amazing stories will definitely inspire more young people to join the action for positive change. And of course, our moderator, Cheryl, has always been a passionate climate champion as well. And we are indeed very glad to reach out to youth champions and audience beyond our shores, and through this virtual SSA platform. And I hope that it will even drive bigger action across, different countries. And thank you once again. And also thanks all those who signed up on the Facebook live stream, and do enjoy the session. And over to you now, Cheryl and the panelists.
Thank you for passing on to me, Ms. Esther. So hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us here today. A warm welcome to our Youth4Climate Conversation panel. And thank you, CDL, for a warm introduction and for having us. So I'm Cheryl. I'll be moderating for today's panel, and I will be asking and taking questions from you all to our panelists. So don't hesitate to drop a message into the comment box. But before I introduce the amazing ladies who will be sharing today, let's play a little poll that we have prepared. So in our poll for today, I have 2 questions for you guys. So one, what is the hardest item to remove or reduce in your everyday life? One is plastic straw. The second is plastic bags. The third is takeaway containers. Or the fourth, single-use beverage cups, such as bubble tea cups. And the second question, what is the biggest source of pollution in the ocean? Is it A, plastics, B, oil, C, metal, D, paper or wood, or E, fertilizer runoff? So we'll take a few seconds to have everyone to vote. So, wow. Everyone says, it's a tough fight between takeaway containers and single-use beverage cup. Okay, maybe we take another 5 seconds for the poll before we close the poll. Awesome. So for the first So for the first question that we asked, what is the hardest item to remove or reduce in our everyday life? And majority of us actually answered plastic bags. And for the second one, the biggest source of pollution in the ocean is actually plastics. Interesting. Thank you guys so much for participating. And I'm super pumped by everyone's participation. So before we actually start the conversation with our panelists, let me introduce them to you all. So first up, we have Miss Anna Oposa calling in to join us from the Philippines. So Anna is actually a multi-hyphenated change maker. She's a writer, speaker, and project manager, but is best known as the co-founder and chief mermaid of the Save Philippine Seas, or SPS in short. SPS is a movement to mobilize citizens, as in SEA, citizens, for collective action and behavioral change. So welcome, Anna. Would you like to share a few words with us on your amazing work?
Yes, so I've shared my screen. Hi, thank you, Cheryl, for that very generous introduction. And thank you to CDL and Esther for inviting me and having me here. Although this would be more fun if we were in real life, but here we are. So Save Philippine Seas is a 9-year-old movement. We started out in 2011 as a social media campaign, and then it evolved into a nonprofit. And the things that we do are under engagement. So we work with different kinds of stakeholders. We work a lot on environmental education and teaching people why we need to care about the seas, but we're most passionate about empowerment. So we want to empower citizens to take action on different issues. So this slide shows just a few projects that we have. The Sea Camp is for youth, empowering young leaders just the way CDL does. Our education is addressed to teachers. Submarine stands for Sustainable Businesses for Marine Conservation. We also do a lot of work on shark conservation. Hackathon was a hackathon for marine conservation, looking for tech-based solutions. And then we have waste management programs under the program Waste Watchers, which has programs like Straw Wars and the Plastic Battle. And these are just some of our contacts if you want to get to know more about our projects and connect with us. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Anna. So next up, we have an amazing guest that we have on board with us today. And her name is Samantha. So Samantha Thian, Samantha or Sam, is the founder of Sustainable. She began her venture in 2017 out of a strong desire to contribute to marine conservation in Southeast Asia. So since 2015, her experience with various marine conservation projects and her own interactions with the marine environment inspired her to give back in her own way. So Sustainable has a long-standing commitment to helping the environment through channeling its profits to marine conservation. So without further ado, Sam, would you like to share more about your work?
Thanks, Cheryl. So hi, everyone. I'm Samantha, but you can call me Sam, and I'm the founder of Sustainable, which has been around since 2017. So I'm going to share with you a bit about Sustainable. So I've been diving for over 10 years, and I took part in Save Philippine Sea Camp, right in the center you can see here. And that was really what inspired me to make a difference and start my own social business called Sustainable. So a very big thank you to CDL as well for having me, always providing a great platform for youth to share more. And so you can see on the right was when we did a climate activism workshop with CDL in 2017. So a big thank you. So I'm going to share a bit more about Sustainable. So it's a social business that supports marine conservation in Southeast Asia. So we don't just look at Singapore, but all around the region, such as Philippines, Indonesia, Brunei. And we really do this by encouraging individuals to lead a more sustainable lifestyle. And over the past 3 years, thanks to the great support with our partners, we've actually had done over 33 marine conservation projects in 5 Southeast Asian countries and over 33,000 Singapore dollars to many projects that look not only at just marine conservation as a whole, but supporting local communities, providing equal opportunity, and of course, protecting our seas. So thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to engage with everyone. And back over to you, Cheryl.
Thank you for sharing so much, Sam. So next, I would like to introduce another speaker of ours, which is Hannah Angsana. So Hannah is an in-house legal professional by day. who decided to advocate for something she believes in, which is the preservation of batik as a cultural heritage and the source of income for artisans in Indonesia. So together with her friend Tony Sugiata, Hannah actually co-founded ANERDstore to ensure real batik techniques stay relevant by incorporating it into contemporary fashion. So Hannah, would you like to share with us on your amazing works? You have to unmute.
Yep. Yeah. Definitely. Thank you, Cheryl. Hi, yes, I'm Hannah. Thank you so much, CDL, also for, this is my first time speaking with CDL. And so, yes, ANERDstore started about 2 years ago as an offshoot of ANERD Gallery that were focused on textile art, focusing on batik. The mission is, as Cheryl said, to preserve the traditional technique of batik as a technique, not as print. You will see some pictures here where, and there is a reason for it, and which we will discuss, of course, during the talk. And the way we do that preservation is by incorporating that traditional technique into contemporary fashion. And of course, in the process of creation, we became aware of how conscious the waste generated that is generated by fashion industry, and we then saw the opportunity that okay, we can make batik better for the makers, for the wearers, and for the environment. And as a result, we then work with the textile artists and clothiers across Java and seamstresses to help them while honing their skills. We also systematically encourage sustainable practices so that they will have, so that in the long run, everybody benefits. And that's a little bit about us.
Thank you for sharing, Sam. Hannah. Thank you for sharing, Hannah. So, okay, speaking about Sam, we actually have two Sams on our panel today. So I would really love to introduce to everyone Sam Shu-Tin. So Sam is actually a coral scientist and have been actively restoring coral reefs in Singapore. So spending a lot of time underwater gave Sam the opportunity to experience the first-hand impact of human destruction through marine debris. So with the main intention to raise awareness about marine debris, Sam co-founded our Singapore Reefs to connect like-minded marine enthusiasts through diving and outreach programs. So Sam is also an aspiring science communicator and is currently exploring creative ways to increase public knowledge and appreciation in marine science. So through these efforts, Sam hopes to inspire stewardship among the youth to do their part for the environment in environmental conservation. Sam, the floor is yours to share.
Hi everyone, my name is Sam also, and I'm a coral scientist. I mainly work on understanding how coral respond to the impact of coastal development and climate change, and also coming out with restoration strategies that's best suited for urbanized reefs. I spend a lot of time underwater, and this is basically what I do all the time, assessing reef health and checking out the coral transplants, and sometimes getting distracted by some of my favorite marine animals. So this picture was actually taken in Raja Ampat 2 years ago, where Anna and I went on a diving expedition to the heart of Coral Triangle as the winners of the 2018 CDL E-Gen Challenge. And for this year's challenge, CDL is also going to send winners to Africa. So I say all the youth here, just go for it, okay? So when you're diving, it's a whole new world. Sometimes you see pretty things, sometimes you see things that actually triggers you. So these are some snapshots of the things that I see in the water. You see plastic bags, some of them tangled around coral, some of them look like food for marine animals. Sometimes you come across a whole graveyard of plastic bottles and abandoned fishing gears that can easily destroy this coral. And they take very, very long time to grow. So this marine debris, you name it, we probably would have found it. Okay, and this ugly sight actually kick-started my journey in marine conservation. So together with Dr. Toh Tai Chong, we founded our Singapore Reefs, which is a community initiative that aims to promote awareness about Singapore's marine biodiversity and also the impact of marine debris through dive cleanup and education outreach activities. So we also work with different organizations to try to bridge the gap between marine science and the public. So like recently, we worked together with Singapore Science Centre to develop the new Young Marine Biologist Badge. So through this effort, we really hope to inspire more marine stewards to do their part for the environment. Back to you, Cheryl.
Thank you, Sam. So last but not least, we have Shana calling from the US. So Shana is actually a sustainability professional podcaster, and educator. She has been organizing and building coalitions with the other organizations to develop similar clean energy coalitions in other parts of the country. So in May, Shana actually launched the podcast and platform Sustaining with Shana to share her experiences and love for sustainability with others while helping to address this important issue that has been easily overlooked in her community. Shana, would you like to give a quick share about your initiative?
Thanks, Cheryl. Hi, everyone. So Sustaining with Shana, like Cheryl said, was largely created out of the fact that sustainability to some extent does exist in my community, but is largely overlooked or is not a forefront of a lot of conversations. So I wanted to provide a space and a platform for people to really get the chance to talk about their story, but also bridge the gap between local and national to international endeavors like this, and see how ways we can build relationships and coalitions with each other. So I don't have slides necessarily, but I just want to quick kind of show you a little bit of the homepage and the website and how we are 5 episodes in. The next episode will launch next Friday. And with a lot of the initiatives I do, I try to address specific issues that are related to our community and what we need most right now to talk about. So thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you for sharing, Shana, and thank you for all our speakers for sharing. Okay, so it's time to get this conversation actually started, and I would strongly encourage everyone to actually type in any questions in the chat. I'll be looking through the chat box to actually ask the questions in between this entire period. So first question I actually have for our panelists to actually kick off the conversation is in all your experiences, right? What would you identify as a challenge you find hardest to overcome, and what were the biggest thing you had to change to overcome them? So anyone from our speakers can start sharing.
Well, maybe I can share. So hi everyone. I think one of the biggest challenges I really like to share personally is some of the insecurities I had as a youth. Sometimes we feel like the challenge, for example, in going zero waste and plastic pollution, it's so big. It involves a lot of systematic and structural change. So one of the biggest challenges was me feeling that I never had the power to try and drive change. So I think that was a personal challenge I wanted to share. But at the same time, I also realized that, by connecting with great individuals, great businesses that support like CDL and, learning from other organizations, you can really drive change. So yeah, I think that was what I wanted to share.
Thank you for sharing, Sam. Any of our speakers like to add on to this point?
I think I'll add on. So adding to Sam, I agree with her also. So in my experience, picking up marine trash is not a long-term solution, right? And it's not sustainable. So what we want to do now is to really find out what kind of trash are actually lying beneath our waters, what kind they are, and where are the hot spots, so we can actually bring this up and to relevant agencies and communities to formulate strategies together to better manage the coastal areas and biodiversity in that area. And another one is really education, like how can we actually push for more eco-literacy in that sense? Is it because of the lack of formal marine education in Singapore that leads to that? And a lot of us are staying so far away from the waters. So definitely we need more effort in that to bridge the connection between us and nature. So I think it's not easy, but if people from different backgrounds and industries are willing to come and work together, there certainly might be some form of ideas or mitigation that we can prevent this.
Actually, Sam, out of curiosity, right, what's the most common thing, right? Maybe Anna could also chime in with this. Like, what is the most common thing you guys find while diving into the sea that is not supposed to be under the sea?
This is so fun. I'll start first, Anna. So when I go diving, usually I go and dive. I'll dive around the southern island of Singapore. So I was also very curious what actually lies under the jetty, because you see a lot of vessels, a lot of recreational vessels, they will dock there, and then people go there for picnic. So we dove, and then we found an entire setup of barbecue stuff. So you have barbecue grill, tongs, mess tins, bottle of wine. People are actually really having party there, and maybe they forget. So all these things, they actually go into the sea. So we even find like half open packets of hot dogs. So this is the struggle. Sometimes you really see this, and they're really not supposed to be there in the sea. How about Anna?
Yeah, similar to, well, it really depends where you are. So I've been in places where the most common item that I've seen underwater is clothes. And I remember asking someone in the community, I was like, why are there so many pieces of clothes in the ocean? And he said, well, look at the island. It's full of people hanging their clothes outside their homes. But in other places, the most common thing I find are personal care product sachets. So in the Philippines, we have what we call a sachet economy, where a lot of people, especially in coastal communities, can only afford buying products like personal care products like shampoos and soaps and conditioners, and even household products that are used for cooking in small sachets. So those are pretty common to find underwater.
So it's very interesting. So the most common thing that we find in Singapore waters is the 1.5 plastic bottle.
Wow.
So it's really a graveyard. Yeah.
A
So I
graveyard.
remember going there.
A graveyard?
A graveyard. So there's a whole pile of plastic bottles on the seabed. So during the first dive, we dove in 1 hour, picked up 150 of them. The next dive, we go in again and we picked up another 150. So it seems that it's never ending. And this is really a huge problem.
Thank you for sharing. I think from the audience, right, Rachel C. Actually have a question. She says, hi Sam, I think not enough Singaporeans think that we have a rich marine biodiversity. How do we change that? Maybe we'll open this to Anna as well. How might we, change people's perception about having a rich marine biodiversity, like understanding and perception to it?
So with this, I think there's also quite a lot of efforts from the marine community going out, reaching out to the public through roadshow. You have Festival of Biodiversity by NPark, and then you have different organizers coming together and organizing all this nature walk, so that to actually bring people closer to nature. So these are some of the tours that you can actually go to, or we can just encourage you to go out to the shore, go and explore. Now it's actually a very good time because it's low tide, where you can go and see the animals during the intertidal zone. So this is something that you can explore. And you can also reach out to different platforms. You have Riatan's Wild Singapore website. So this is where she documents a lot of marine animals, and scientists also use her database for their research. So it's something that you can look at it, and then maybe later I'll share it in the chat.
Thank you so much, Sam. Anna and Sam from Sustainable, would you like to add on to this one?
Yeah, I'll just add on to what Sam said earlier. I'm an advocate of experiential learning. So as much as possible, I really try to get people out to the sea or get people out in nature. But when that's not possible, like, of course, like now, the next best thing would be sharing audiovisual material. So sharing links to videos and photos and explaining why we need to be proud of our biodiversity and how they can take care of it, whether they're living inside, cities or living by the coast. It shouldn't matter.
Thank you. Sam, you have Sam from Sustainable, anything to add on?
Actually, I would like to kind of use this opportunity to kind of jump into another question after someone asked about biodiversity, because I think Sam and Anna have covered that very well. But as Sam talked about the tide receding, I think this dives nicely to the next question is like, what is your stance on microplastics and plastic bioaccumulation? Because I do think that, as Sam mentioned, when the tide goes down, you have very nice intertidal walks. But, right now with the monsoon season, when the tide goes down at East Coast Park, it's a whole wave of plastic trash just left on the beach. So I just thought it would be nice to tie in that, it's a pity that at present we have so much plastic waste around us, and sometimes that hinders our impression of the beauty of the environment. Yeah, so I wanted to kind of bring that across, and also maybe to hear from Hannah's perspective, because she's doing textiles. What is her thoughts on microplastics, and how does that affect her work?
Actually, I have a question for all the panelists. This is also in the chat box. Thank you for sharing that, Sam. This question is for all our panelists. Is actually phasing out single-use plastic an ideal or possible reality? How do we encourage the public to support this? Particularly to the moms and pops shop without harming their bottom line. So maybe Hannah, you'd like to share in terms of like as a retailer perspective, because I know like ANERDstore has a physical store.
All right. So I'm actually interested to address Sam's question in a little bit, but but this ties in with that. As a consumer, right, I think the best thing to do is to educate yourself. So for instance, I actually bought a sustainable takeaway pack not too long ago, and I think a lot of times the resistance is like, oh, but if I go there with my own pack, and then the auntie or the uncle will be like, but it's a different size or whatever it is. But you just start with that, and then a conversation starts, and you'll be surprised how happy they are now to accommodate this. And basically that's really the easiest way. Just educate yourself, and then start with educating yourself is free. And it's very cheap. And sorry, if I can go back to that microplastic conversation.
Yes.
This is an interesting one, because there are two reasons why we advocate for the so-called real batik, right? One is because you want to make sure that when you buy your clothes, you actually are helping the makers who make the clothes. And then there's a very good second reason, because when you use real batik, the one with the hot wax stamped or hand drawn onto the fabric, you have to use natural fabric, and you can't use polyester, because then the dye won't stick onto the fabric. And that's so this may be news for some of us, but basically when you buy fast fashion, you buy a polyester kind of clothes, every time you wash it, you shed microplastic. And so that's one of the few things that we learned as you start to look at what's in your clothes, right? And ultimately, can you imagine just buying a $5 T-shirt made of God knows what will actually pollute the ocean? That's literally the downstream implication.
Interesting. Thank you for sharing, Hannah. Shana, do you have any thoughts about this?
Yeah, to kind of go back to Cheryl's question she just asked, that I think at least like here, especially where I live in the US, I live in a state that oil and gas production has been a large driver of our economy. So because of that, we've had a lot of push for the production of plastic products here in my state. So then also because of that, I think we have a lot of, I guess you could say, backwards ways of approaching plastics and reducing plastic waste consumption. Because in fact, the Pennsylvania legislature, I think it was either last year or the year before, tried to produce a ban on a plastic ban. So in other words, this ban would basically negate any plastic ban on any plastic products. So just a lot of like backwards way of thinking, and it just seems like the economy is driving a lot of our decisions here. But I think I think things are slowly changing. But I think because of American consumerism, it's so much easier to say, well, can I just order this takeaway and what does it matter where the container it's in styrofoam or in plastic goes to? So largely because of that, I think there's not education on behalf of the consumers and also education on behalf of retailers. So whether they're restaurants or shop owners, a lot of times it's awkward going into a place of business and then asking, do you have a sustainable option? Or when I'm done at a restaurant and I bring home leftovers, do you have an alternative to styrofoam? And most places do not. So I think a lot of it's education. And for a lot of businesses, it's not economically viable to go sustainable because it's still currently more expensive to have those more sustainable alternatives.
In your community. Okay, I see. Actually, quite in line. One of the audiences actually have this question that is pretty related. It's actually by Belmont. What he actually shared here is the sharing by all speakers are inspirational and laudable, especially since these are ground up and youth-centric initiatives. So his question is, in your line of activism to raise awareness and public education, who are the major perpetrators and how do you engage them effectively? Anyone like to hop on this?
Maybe I can share a bit. Talking about, sustainable, it's quite funny. Sometimes I feel a bit guilty because I'm afraid we promote consumerism because we are selling products. So like now what we do is to tell people to only buy if you need one. And I think one of the challenges as well is sharing with businesses that sustainability can be a financially sustainable option. So I know there's been a lot of conversation on, bottom line growth, sustainability can be expensive. So how sustainable through the work, we don't just sell stuff, but we also consult different businesses, and how we share our message is really aggregating the consumer voice to our customers and sharing with businesses how they can reduce waste and save costs at the same time. So I guess from a retail perspective, how we really share with businesses is that sharing with them that, by reducing packaging, switching away from plastics, there are ways to reduce cost. So what we really do is like whenever we talk to businesses, the first thing in their mind is cost, and we don't want to go in saying that, sustainability is expensive, you need to shift. We look at sharing in a more positive way the benefits of choosing sustainable alternatives. So yeah, thought that might be something I like to share as well.
Thank you for sharing, Sam. Any of our speakers like to chime in?
I can add to whatever Sam just said. What's something that I actually find interesting is some of our producers like to pack all the clothes that are to come to Singapore individually, but with plastic. So there's like a mindset change that we constantly have to have conversations with them and say, please don't give us individual plastics because we don't need it. And we don't need it. We're going to sell it and we try very hard. So until today, I'm still trying to clear, like when we have to mail things out, then we have no choice but to use plastic that was from like 2018 or might be earlier, because the producers themselves have this mindset that, like it's, just a single use mindset, right? That's just something that probably just need to be somehow slowly get them rid of.
I see. Any thoughts from Sam and Anna?
Yeah, so for my side, so what we actually have some kind of community, so it's called Friends of Marine Park, where we get the users of the marine park together to actually brainstorm, to talk about, how our activities actually may potentially affect each other's activities. So through that, we bring everybody to the same level, and then we talk about it. And through that, different organizations actually can collaborate or work together to protect the marine environment as a whole community. So that's actually nice. So in this group, we have fishermen, we have boaters, we have kayakers, so those that are users of the sea. And I think it's very nice to hear the both views from different parties, and then after that, come up with strategies to have this kind of win-win situation, but at the same time ensure that it is the sustainable interaction with the environment.
Thank you for sharing, Sam. And I would.
Yeah, I'll just follow on. So Hannah earlier said something about the single-use mindset, and I think that's still something that we are working to change. So if you go to the website of Save Philippine Seas, you'll see a lot of like toolkits. We've created toolkits with campaign materials that are all open source and downloadable for free. And what we've done is when we organize events, we talk to the hotel manager or wherever we're having the event, and we tell them that, in every event that we do, we make sure that we phase out single-use plastics, especially the unnecessary ones. And before we sign a contract with them, the contract will have to say that they will not use sachets, that they will not use straws and bottled water, just so that, it's important to communicate this doing away with the single-use mindset, but it's also important to put it on paper just so that when someone forgets, you can say, hey, remember when we had this meeting and you agreed to this? So let's work together and help you find alternatives, or let's, train the staff to make sure that when they serve the food, they don't serve it with plastic covers and we have, beeswax wrap instead or something like that. So it's important to be very clear about your objectives and set it from the very beginning.
Thank you for sharing, Anna. I think let's take a pause on the the plastic pollution question. And there's this one question from the audience that is really interesting. So Esther actually asked, to all the panelists, has there been a moment that you feel like giving up on your advocacy or your NGO? And how did you overcome like this?
I could speak to that, and I think for me personally, the biggest issue was people not necessarily understanding the severity of the work that I've done or the work I've done with communities. And I think that's only the beginning. And I think there's a quote from Gandhi that it's like first they deny your cause, then they fight your cause, and then you win. And I really believe in that, where it's like you have to, as much as that's really frustrating, you kind of have to work through that phase, because once you get to that point and you don't stop what you're doing, the more you bring people in at the same time, and the more you build your work and your coalition. And yeah, I know it sounds easy and simple, but it's a lot harder in person. But don't give up. Seriously, don't give up. Because in the process of even starting this podcast and platform, a lot of these people that I know in the community or even outside of my community, but connected in this larger network of sustainability professionals, I thought maybe didn't think twice about me doing this or the importance of it. And now they're all starting to come out of the woodwork and ask if they could be on the show, to ask if they can help in any way. And I think it just goes to show you have to keep on course.
That's very important, to stay on course. Thank you for sharing. Our other speakers, Sans, Hannah, Anna, any thoughts about when was the time where you wanted to give up?
I think there's definitely downtime. Like you see, especially in climate change, like coral bleaching, and then it's like when it comes, everything really just it's not very well as in the reef. But then like, I think it's very important to have a very strong support group, you know, and it's really nice because all this, like for us advocates and everything, we are actually very, very strong. Like sometimes if we hit a roadblock, like me and the other Sam will meet for ice cream. And then that's when we talk about it and magic actually happens. And then we get our fire back again, you know, just get out every time. Just go forward and talk to people.
Thank you.
Just to add to that, I think it's just so important to have a good support system. And it's also important to ask yourself why you want to quit and examine your reasons for that. Because every year I say that this is going to be the last year of Save Philippine Seas. And, 9 years later, I'm still here. But then when I ask myself why I want to quit, I realize that it's just because I'm tired. And I'm anxious about not being able to raise enough funds or not being able to, pay my staff or get more grants. And then when I am able to set those apart from the feeling of wanting to quit, then I can process it and address that.
I see.
Maybe I can share a bit as well. For sustainable, it's been a very challenging journey. I think because at first when we started, it was a lot about educating and finding alternatives to single-use straws, cutlery, and now in the market that's so saturated, I feel sometimes sustainable may contribute to the problem rather more than solve it. So I think in terms of giving up, it's very easy because, the world is so volatile and you're always constantly questioning why you do things. But really what Anna and Sam said, really need to build a strong network of supporting individuals. And so when I was actually feeling this way about sustainable recently, I decided that, why don't I just leverage on the network that we have? We don't always have to sell things, but maybe we can galvanize action. So I think one thing to always do is reach out on social media. So we ended up organizing sessions to go clean up East Coast in our time. And that re-energizes me, and it made me realize the purpose of sustainable isn't to sell things that I initially had started to do, but really to look at creating a support system as well of people. So I think everyone will always have bad days, but we need to press forward.
Thank you for sharing, Sam. That is really active. Hannah, you have anything to share on this?
I think if you start this journey with the knowledge that it's not going to be an easy one, then you probably just won't give up very easily, right? Like, so I think everyone said it pretty well, that you just stay true to your course and it'll be very easy not to give up. I owe it to my mother to continue to fight, because she always fights me. Because she's like, what is sustainable batik? Why so expensive one? That kind of a thing. And then so you always start with having to go through that hurdle first, and knowing that there will always be challenges. So sometimes I guess I overthink things a little bit, and think about is when you have an idea that is for good, is it going to actually fly, or are we being unrealistic, right? That's something to think about.
Thank you guys for sharing. I think like one thing I get it from all speakers, right, is that, it's, there is, all this journey, it's possible because of the support of our community and, the support of the people that we have within our sites. And I'm really very, thankful, I'm seeing a lot of support from our audience here, through, the chat box. I mean, wow, there's a lot of questions that you guys have, for our different panelists. And I noticed that most of the questions, while looking through, right, there are a lot of questions that is towards plastic and sustainability. So maybe I would like to group together some of the questions that I see in the group chat. So from like Wan Xuan Lin, she actually mentioned that most of the people currently relying on plastic bag, bottle, takeaway container that provide convenience for them. So it's difficult to convince people to bring their own bag. What can you do to influence others to reduce the waste? I assume this is on a personal capacity. And LJ, she actually do you guys have any experience or advice in encouraging BYO when, ordering food, shopping, or things that is already packed for picked up. So I understand, right now we are slowly transiting out of the COVID situation. And, during this COVID period and also transiting out of this COVID period, we have this stronger reliance towards plastic, single-use plastic packaging to our, everyday use, everyday life, everyday choices. So I was wondering, what's our panelists' take on this with regards to this increased surge of plastic use during this period? Anyone want to start first? That is a big question.
I think I would like to share that because when I first started Sustainable, right, and then we wanted to share with people how to reduce their plastic use. When I repost someone who used a metal straw in a Starbucks plastic cup, they will just shoot us and say, "Hey, but the plastic is the cup is still plastic." And I think that comes to the point in realizing how you communicate. If you always come to someone in a, I guess, not aggressive manner, but telling them that they're doing something wrong, the first thing people will act is be defensive. So I think on the topic of single-use plastic and sharing the message is really, I think, through your action personally. So I really try not to comment or look whenever I see people single-use plastic, because I think it's important to respect that choice, and everyone is on a different part of the journey. And if, for example, it's come to the point where my friends, when they see me and they're going to buy a drink, they will consciously realize that they care about what I believe in, and therefore they also make the effort. So I think that's important to share on my end.
Any other of our speakers like to add on to this?
Something I would add, in addition to what Sam said, is I think acknowledging people's journey in the process, and seeing even just simply how with the initiative Plastic Free July, and just seeing how much has changed in a year, and your journey is not the same as someone else's. So acknowledging that, and also I think when acknowledging somebody's journey and where they're at, I think it's a perfect opportunity to also educate them on better ways to be even more sustainable too.
Thank you. Any other of our speakers like to add on to this? Or I have a few other questions from our comment bar. Okay, so I'll just move on with the other question. So, in speaking about, selling and, consumption, right? In recent times, there actually has been an explosion of sustainable products in the market. And we do notice that, they are typically more pricey, as perhaps to the cost of production was distributed more equally, compared to conventional equivalents. Do you think the price forms as a barrier in, motivating people to purchase more sustainable products? Maybe we can start with Hannah.
Yes, I like this question because the answer is yes. I think price is very much a barrier. And there is a very good solution to that. Don't buy. If you don't need it, don't buy it, right? That's first and foremost. But that aside, when you do need to buy something, you can't look at the price of what you're paying today, but it's more of do a dollar cost averaging of how long is quality wise, right? How long is this going to last? How long is this shirt, or how long is that going to last? Is it going to last one season? Is it going to last 3 wears and you're going to throw it away? Obviously, if you pay $5 every month to get a white t-shirt, for example, that adds up over time. But if what you buy and what you choose to incorporate into your life is something that is of good quality, in the long run, believe it or not, it's actually cheaper.
I agree with Hannah. So yes, for me too. So some of the products are actually expensive, but for some products, if you look at the long term, it's like an investment. Okay, you can actually save quite a bit. So for instance, the Freedom Cup, I think it's life-changing. So we can ask the panelists. I think it's really life-changing, right? So and also your reusable containers, really. If not, you can choose not to buy, but you make eco-conscious choice. Okay, so like I go to this drink store, I will order hot drinks and I'll dine in rather than I just take away. And also, if you bring your own container sometimes, you might even get larger serving of food. So, yeah.
That's a good tip.
I wanted to reframe the question as well, because people see sustainability products as more expensive, but sometimes I see it as paying the true value of a product.
That's
so
true.
what does this mean? If I'm looking at a t-shirt that's $5 and I think it's cheap, I think we need to question ourselves why, because in the production, in the supply chain, the amount of natural resources, the amount of labor, and the amount of effort that goes into the product, to me personally, I don't think it's just for $5. And I think there needs to be a systematic shift in the way of how we look at purchasing products. Unfortunately, I think in Singapore, we're all bargain hunters, and it's one of the habits that, even personally, I try to kick. So, I think it's challenging, but, I do see a fundamental shift as well, with example, Hannah shop saying, where do I buy my clothes? So whenever I buy something, I'm also conscious of the price, but I don't see it expensive, but I see it as paying a fair value. Yeah.
Thank you for, that's very well said, like paying for the value and like investing back to the community that has like produced the product. And I think also like you guys have shared very nice tips in regards in going green. And I think one of the participants actually resonated to what Hannah said. So when Hannah was sharing about the batik pieces, Hui Jie actually said, the batik pieces are beautiful. Oops, suppressing my urge to buy when I don't actually need new clothes. Actually, that is a very good tip, which is like reconsidering our consumption. So apart from that, right, panelists, any like other tips, that you guys have for, individuals who are thinking of going green or becoming more sustainable? Maybe Anna like to share first?
One thing I did recently is to take stock. I was just telling Sam Sustainable this recently that I did an audit of the things that I have. So during the pandemic, I was just at home. So I looked at the stuff that I have, from all my personal care products to my clothes. And then I thought, which one of these things do I really use? And, to reference Marie Kondo, what among these things spark joy in me? And I think that's really important to ask, because and I'm guilty of this too. I get instant gratification from buying new products. But then when I did an audit of the things that I have, I was like, oh my God, I'm not being a good environmentalist by buying more things. So it's important to take stock of what you have and then appreciate them. And then maybe try like a no buy month where you don't buy anything for a whole month, unless it's like food, and you'll realize that you actually don't need a lot of things to make you happy, except maybe books.
Thank you for sharing, Anna. Sam, you wanted to share something?
I just wanted to laugh. Okay, something what I do, and I always please my family, is, I will just sort the trash in front of them, off their lights and aircon when they are not using or in the room. And then after that, after getting pissed at me and screaming like, hey, why you do that? This kind of things. So these little habits are actually slowly imprinted in their brain. So this kind of habits actually start from home, and you yourself be a role leader in that sense. Role model. You be a role model, and then you walk your talk. And after that, they'll slowly understand why you're doing this.
Thank you.
Well, I think one thing as well is really fun that I like to do is trade clothes. Because like with my friends, and I'm like, hey, do you want this? And then I just give it to them. And then it just becomes a habit. Whenever we meet each other, we're just giving pieces of our clothes to each other. And I think it's also a good way. And then one thing as well, it's quite funny if I say this, but like I have a no buy jar. So I treat myself, if I don't buy something it's not that I buy everything every day, it's just become a habit. But if I don't spend money for the day, like I eat at home or something, then I'll put like 50 cents in my money jar and I just save it for traveling, which is what I like to do. So then I thought that was like one way. It's like instant gratification for my piggy bank.
That's a very good, actually a good exercise to keep like a no buy jar, to actually motivate ourselves to not like buy, unnecessary. Because I think a lot of times we buy on impulse, right?
Yeah.
Actually, Shana, during your podcast, right, when you interview with individuals, I noticed you actually interviewed like individuals with zero waste. What is the common advice they actually give individuals who are trying to be more sustainable in their purchases or like in their lifestyle?
Yeah, so in addition to what the other panelists said, I think a lot of it simply is just to not buy when you don't need to, which is a little ironic considering the fact that one of my guests owns a zero waste home goods shop about an hour from where I personally live. And it's interesting that she owns a store that benefits off of people buying sustainable alternatives to a lot of those items. But in that process is if you can't afford those more expensive alternatives, in the meantime, is to, like Anna said, is doing an audit of what you have at home, what you've done. And I've kind of done something similar during the pandemic, is trying to use a lot of jars that are made out of glass that used to be ones that we would store peanut butter in, or we would get like marmalade or jam from the grocery store that house them, which is a great sustainable alternative because you're not consuming more plastic, but also you're using that as a new storage container. So simple things like that, but to put it simply is to not buy something new. And most times, a lot of times when we buy something new, it comes in plastic anyways. So sometimes the best thing is just to avoid it altogether in making that purchase.
I have a question for Shana, if you don't mind. Is swapping something that Americans do, or at least Pennsylvanians? Because that's like a trend, like a clothes swapping. That's something that Singaporeans are starting to do.
It's quite a big trend here.
Yeah, it's quite a big trend.
Yeah, so I personally have never done clothes swapping before, but I know of other people that do. But especially another big thing that's really popular here in the States is to sell your clothes like on online stores like ThredUp. So that's kind of not exactly clothes swapping, but in a way that's a little bit different than you going to a charity store or a secondhand store to buy clothes that you're directly buying them online, which is also seen a trend too with the clothes swapping.
Thank you.
Actually,
sorry,
go
ahead,
Cheryl. I wanted to share something because as much as we, one thing I realized, like as a business, there are many zero waste shops in Singapore trying to make a difference, and I just wanted to highlight that, maybe if we have instant gratification, something we can do is looking at supporting local businesses. I think it's a bit of a conundrum because, as environmentalists, we want to be minimalistic and reduce our use, but at the same time, there are also great businesses that are trying to change the attitude and behaviors of others. So I also feel that there's a need to support them. And there was a comment by Duncan saying ladies will not be able to fight off the buying compulsion. So, I just wanted to highlight that, even though we might want to buy something, there's ways we can spend our dollar in making a difference in supporting like green businesses with good policies. Yeah, so I just wanted to share how important it is. Like running a business is not easy, and I really commend everyone who is trying, especially in the green space.
Thank you for sharing that, Sam. And I agree fully, like, although like if you don't buy, you guys save 100%. Like what Hannah says in the comment, if you don't buy, you save 100%. But if you really have to buy, choose things that are, not only just good for the environment, but it's also fair, for the people that produce it, and like, for the people, shop locally. So it reduces your carbon footprint. Okay, I think looking back at the Zoom group chat, right? Miss Esther actually have a question, for Anna, but I also like to open this to all panelists. The question is for Anna, you started your journey as a child. What have been the biggest, strongest driver for your advocacy? I would like to open this to all panel. What is the strongest driver for you guys to, you guys shared a lot of challenges, and I give like 100% of my support and kudos to you guys. But what has, keep you guys going apart from the, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think what keeps me going, there are a lot of things that keep me going. I think one is growing up in a country where there's so many, that I witness injustice every day. And that really motivates me to make sure that I'm contributing to solutions and not the problems. Another one is just being surrounded by inspiring and inspiring people who are role models. And then on a more personal level, I've always been very determined and very like type A, as we would say. So I always want to excel in everything that I do. It just so happens that I ended up working in marine conservation. So I'm obsessed with just like doing my best and making sure that I don't let the people down who have invested in me. Biggest challenge is making, on a personal level, it's not getting burned out. So making sure to pace myself. And I see the other panelists nodding. So I think they've also experienced this, making sure that we take care of ourselves, whatever that means for each of us. And then of course, the organizational side is continuing to raise funds because I run a nonprofit. And then going against, influential institutions like the Philippine government and big corporations has always been very challenging, especially because I started out really young. I would always go into the room and be the youngest one. And I remember meeting with a senator before, and he was like, I didn't realize I would be meeting with someone so young. And then I said, and beautiful, just to make him laugh. But, that's always like, always making sure that I have to prove myself and work harder to deserve that seat on the table.
Thank you for sharing, Anna. Any of our other speakers like to share on, what is your biggest driver as well?
I think I totally agree with Anna also. Like with this support group that always keep inspiring you to do more, even for the your volunteers or even the public, people who you actually engage with, they follow you and they keep asking, what's next? It's really kind of like inspire you to really want to come up with more ideas to engage them further, to really give them more empowerment in that sense to do their part for the marine environment. And one more thing is for the ocean, I want it to be healthy. I want it to be clean so that I can continue to enjoy diving. And I think that can actually, it goes to the same for all other sea sports also. You don't want to really, hang out in dirty waters and everything. So that is something that really keeps me going.
Maybe I can share as well. Like when growing up in Singapore, for me, I realized I came from such a privileged position. My parents worked very hard for me, and it was really through my work and getting to meet a lot of Southeast Asian people who are really fighting for a better country, a better ocean. And one thing I realized, like working in very poor coastal communities, is that even though they may be having hardship, they really never give up. And to me, that's what really motivates me, that there's still a lot of people who are left behind out in the society. And I really hope that what we're sustainable, it's really turning a privilege that I have into a blessing for others. Cheryl, you're on mute.
Sorry. Thank you for sharing, Sans. Hannah, Shana, anything like you guys like to share as well with regards to that?
I think for me, the biggest thing is that's driven me to continue this fight is relationships is an integral part of that, and coalition building, and realizing that any initiative is most successful when it's not done alone. And it's been really rewarding to building relationships with other people and other organizations, and know that you're not going at it alone. And another driver for me personally is to see and hear injustice in my own community. And I know, like Anna mentioned that too, with her experiences, that a lot of times we get written off, especially as the younger generation, and trying to advocate for sustainability and a sustainable future. And having had experiences of going to UN climate conferences and seeing how so much of the youth voice is powerful in settings like that, and why can't it be like that back here at home or even on a national stage with a lot of policies and initiatives like that. So I think the biggest thing is relationships is so important to the cause, because if one of us burns out, the other can step in and still continue the cause.
I fully agree with that. Hannah, would you like to share your thoughts on, what drives you?
So coming from someone who's been passed on opportunities for quite a number of years, I'm not as young as I think some of us here. If you're not the kind of person who always gets fueled by the community around you, look inside yourself and fight the fight. And also remember, sustainability is not just for the earth, but also for yourself, right? So if you burn out, means you can't sustain. If you can't sustain, all crumbles down. So ultimately, I guess you got to think about the kind of person that you want to be, right? And then that's and just trust yourself that it will pay off someday, if not today. I guess that's all I can say.
Thank you, Hannah. I think that is the last question and the time that we have for today. So before I wrap this entire conversation up, I'm very, very thankful that each and every one of you for being part of today's session and conversation. And I see from the chat, like, there has been like amazing, this overflowing support in terms of question, tips, very rich conversation. And thank you each and every one of you for contributing to this conversation. I'll now pass back the time to Marilyn.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining our 9th virtual SSA once again. A special thank you to Cheryl and our panelists, Hannah, Anna, Sam, Shana, and Samantha, for such an inspiring conversation. Congratulations to Brendan, Valmond, and Jun Yu, the 3 most active participants. So a member of our team will reach out to you regarding your prizes. And before everyone leaves, please take a moment to fill out this feedback poll so that we can learn how to improve on our next few VSA sessions.
I think it's another poll. Yeah.
Give you guys a few seconds to answer. Okay, so before everyone leaves, we'd like to take a quick screen grab of everyone on the screen. So if you haven't turned on your video already, can you please do so and strike a fun pose? Someone from our team will count down from 3.
Okay, if everybody could just turn on their videos, take a quick shot and smile. Okay, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, thank you. The session has been recorded and will be posted on our CDL Sustainability YouTube page. Do join us in our next virtual SSA session on Youth4Climate Global Conversations on July 20th at 7:30. Look out for more details on our social media platforms. And with that, thank you again and stay safe, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
So much.
Thank you guys. Bye.